Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
After a long hiatus.
Exactly. Well, it's me, Daniel,
And ban
and this is Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Boom.
We still got it down packed.
Yeah, we do.
A little bit rusty, but we got it.
You know what? It's weird because before we start recording, I could just be like, "How do we do it again?" But we just
Yeah, we
synced
got
right
this
in,
thing.
right into it.
It's like a bicycle.
Anyway,
you never
thank you
forget
very
that
much
shit.
for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
This is the show where we talk about mostly comic book related stuff, but as you can see from the title, anything to do with
Anything with geekdom.
Yeah,
anything we want to
exactly.
geek out on. That literally could be anything from Fast and the Furious to Star Wars to Marvel, obviously, and everything in between.
Yeah, and so today we're gonna break from our usual setup of talking about the news and then getting into it. It's gonna be all the Mandalorian because we've got 2 episodes to talk about, and the hope is that we do this week by week. So you're gonna be hearing more of us more consistently.
Yeah.
But I think for the coming weeks, unless something really big happens,
Yeah. We're not
we're
gonna break from
aware
this.
of the
Yeah.
Batman casting stuff and
Yeah.
all that stuff, and the Joker crossing $1 billion. But we want to just talk about the Mandalorian today,
Yes.
and for the coming weeks, and then obviously we'll have the Rise of Skywalker episode.
Yeah, as the 2019 finale,
Yeah.
the finale of the decade.
Well, I mean, we'll still have Mandalorian episodes after that, but in terms of our
Yeah. That's what I see. That is the Mandalorian episodes. That is the Spider-Man Far From Home to the Infinity Saga, the way I see it.
all right, so here we go. The second chapter has a name, but does the first chapter have a name?
No, I think they've just been releasing it as Chapter 1, Chapter 2.
Because chapter 2 is definitely called The Child.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I
but
don't know if chapter 1 had a name.
I don't know.
Either way, we're talking about chapter 1 now.
Yeah, we're talking about Chapter 1 and 2 together. Big
You want to talk
episodes.
about them together?
Well, I mean, we have to.
No,
Ultimately.
I'm saying like we could do 1 and then.
Oh
2.
yeah, and then bridge on to 2. So with the, I think the biggest question that a lot of people had was whether or not Star Wars works in a television-based format, and I'm just like, why would it not? I mean, arguably the Star Wars episodes, like the movies themselves, have established that kind of episodic TV kind of viewing style way before the MCU ever did. So it was just one of those things that I was like, how could it not work? It's just whether or not there's enough content or anything like that. And I think the biggest question is whether or not Star Wars content would work without the explicit focus on the Jedi and the Sith. I think
Right.
that was a bigger question more than anything else.
I definitely questioned that.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to make sure if we were talking about episode 1 as a whole, then episode 2.
Right.
Because I feel like we should just do 1.
To be fair,
then
I think
2.
we should classify them as Chapter 1, Chapter 2 for The Mandalorian, because otherwise
That's
we
what
get
they're
the episodes all confused with
All right,
New
fine.
Hope and
Sorry.
all that kind of stuff.
You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Let's talk about just chapter 1
Yeah.
stuff. Then we'll move on to chapter 2.
Yeah.
So I'll put a pin in what I was about to talk about because I think that works more with talking about chapter 2.
Right.
Chapter 1. We've got the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
He's good at what he does, I imagine. Well, people
Best in the
obviously
parsec.
yeah, that's what they've said.
According to Herzog or whatever. I can't.
Werner
Herzog.
Herzog?
Yeah.
Yeah, Werner Herzog. He knows he's the best, and he's like, listen, I'm going to give you piecemeal information. I'm going to give you pieces of piecemeal information, and you'll still be able to figure this out.
Yep.
He's like, you'll make short work of it. Before he even meets Werner, he rescues. I really didn't realize that was Horatio Sands. I was like, this guy has such a familiar voice when he's in the cantina. I know it's
That
like
was
Vika-
Horatio Sands?
Yeah. The blue guy that he
Oh
saved.
my
Or
God.
he not saves. The blue guy that he collects as a bounty.
Oh, that voice is very familiar.
I was like,
now.
this guy sounds so familiar, and I was trying to be good. I didn't want to look at my phone.
Right.
I did end up looking at my phone. Like,
Yeah.
that's who that is. That's awesome.
I know.
I was
It's
like,
amazing what a whole amount of blue paint and
Well, yeah, I mean,
Practical
once
effects
I
will
knew
do,
it,
eh?
because I've watched it twice now, just so I knew what
Oh,
I was
yeah.
talking about for this episode. But like, yeah, like once I rewatched, I was like, yeah, I guess that's his face. That it, like, or sorry, his mouth.
It totally
is
is.
his mouth.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just. Yeah, the other stuff really threw me off, and
Yeah.
I guess I really do need to see his face. Anyway, perfect. He was great. He was great, and I kind of like that. I know that specifically in the instance of people like Bill Burr and Werner
Yes.
Herzog, there are actors who don't care about Star Wars in this.
Yes.
But
Which is kind of fun to
but
me.
obviously someone like Horatio Sands loves Star Wars, so it's
Yeah.
kind of cool to like see that mix of people who are in it. Like
Yeah.
obviously there's people who are like, I needed a job, and that's perfectly valid as well,
Yep.
because it doesn't look like this show has people who are like, I don't really care what's going on. Like it looks like people are giving it their all
Yes.
regardless. But it's really cool to be like, oh, like this person who you wouldn't really think would have a chance is getting a chance because they're doing more long form stuff now.
Yeah.
That someone like Horatio Sands can be in something with like Werner Herzog, and they're both like, yeah, it's for Star Wars. Because I think Werner Herzog flat out was like, yeah, no, I don't need to watch it. I just liked the script. He's like, I don't
Yeah.
care about the movies. Like, I like the script. It reminded me of my own stuff. So yeah, I want to be a part of it.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was definitely that. It's I mean, the casting itself was completely fantastic. It's just one of the things that bothers me is whether like God, his helmet is on the whole time, and that it's hard
I
to
don't
place
think it
a lot
will
of
be
things.
on the whole time.
We don't know that.
We don't know
because-
for right, but
yeah.
I'm, you know, this is what we do. We do conjecture.
We
I'm saying
speculate.
I don't think it'll be on the whole time.
I hope it won't be on the whole time. The reason why I hope not, because there's no need for it to be on the whole time. I mean, if you look at Star Wars lore and the the things are canon, I mean,
I only ever think of like Jango Fett not keeping his helmet on. So I'm just
well,
like, yeah,
that's
they
what I
don't-
mean. It's
they
like
don't have
within-
to keep it on.
So
It's
yeah,
just-
that's the thing. There's like there's dialogue in the first chapter where he's like, "I heard Mandalorians never take off their helmet or armor or anything." I'm like, that's not true.
No, he didn't. All he said was,
Yeah, he
"Is
didn't-
it true that you
yeah,
don't take?"
They didn't respond.
So it was
to
a
that.
question.
So it's just one of those things where I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. It's
Yeah,
kind of cool.
they're obviously playing with it,
Yeah.
and not quite calling their shot, but kind of setting stuff up. For
I hope he
later.
takes off his helmet because it's going to bother me a lot. I'm
I
like,
think-
you can't really emote, and your dialogue is like they're so minimal. And I get that you're playing the lone gunman, and you're
Right.
playing into the Western tropes and of like this tortured guy, of bounty hunter, and everything like that, and it works really, really well. But at some point, I'm going to want.
I would
something
say
different.
you're right that he is tortured because they show you his flashbacks and that.
Yes.
But I'm like, because I don't really see his face, he never like I forget unless
Mm-hmm.
they show those flashbacks. I'm kind of like, yeah, it seems like he's perfectly fine.
Yep.
He doesn't seem anything
Mm-hmm.
really because he's faceless. He has very sparse dialogue, except for when let's do this kind of in order. But anyway, so he basically doesn't talk when he goes to pick up.
Yep.
I'm just gonna call him Horatio Sands. I don't actually know what the character's name is.
Yeah.
When he picks him up at the beginning, basically doesn't talk, and I kind of like that scene where basically he makes Horatio Sands do all the talking. He's like, "Oh, that's a puck. Oh, is that me? Oh, I guess I gotta go with you
Yeah.
then." Like it's like he's basically making you dig your own grave.
Yeah.
Which I liked. That was cool. That was effective. I'm glad they stopped with the whole he doesn't talk thing because
Yeah, that would have
we need
that would have been bothered me so much. On top of the helmet on the whole time. In that situation, I was like, that opening scene was so strong. It was like, oh, the Western. It really was a Western trope going in, and it just kind of really. The lack of dialogue really helped that scene out, I think. Where it was just like the only thing I remember him saying, it's like he points a blaster at him, cold or warm. It's your decision or something.
Yeah, he's like,
that.
I can bring you because
Yeah.
that's because he's digging his own grave, and
Yes.
then he's like trying. He's like, no, don't worry. Like I can pay you. Don't worry. And
Right.
he's like, listen, I can bring you in cold, or I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold. And he gets
Yeah.
his blaster, and you're like, I mean, for me, selfishly, what's really getting me through this is like, I guess this would be like if I could watch just like a Batman TV show where he just dealt with bad guys and didn't ever have to be Bruce Wayne. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm down.
Yeah.
I'll watch this. Like he's just good at what he does,
Yeah.
and he does it a lot.
Yeah.
And this is great. So then he does that. He picks him up. The Horatio Sands character thinks he's tricking him by being like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go to the bathroom," and you get to learn about his
And
species,
then
about
you
like,
get
"Oh,
a
I'm
caravan
molting it."
night. Yeah.
And I loved that too. I was like, "Yeah, this is that was especially. I'm like, imagine if Batman could just put his villains in carbonite. Like, this would be great. This would be way better.
Yeah, it would
It'd
solve
be so
everything.
much more effective.
He wouldn't be
now he
killing
doesn't have to kill,
anyone.
and
Yeah.
you just stop them from doing bad things.
Yeah.
I'm down with this show already.
Yep.
And then, I mean, I obviously everyone thinks that Mandalorian design is cool, like when back from Boba Fett, but
Totally,
like
yeah.
so like the fact that they can just focus on that and you can like spend time with it
Yeah.
and not have it be like, oh, he just looks cool, like he can actually do cool things throughout and he uses his gadgets and his weapons. And it's just like, yeah, this is really cool. I'm down. The only thing, it's not a problem. I was just like, why does Carl Weathers give him such a hard time about like, oh, I'm gonna pay you with money that doesn't even matter anymore? Because he's like, well, the Empire's down, so I'm not taking your Imperial money. And he's like, well, that's all I have. And then he's like, fuck you. And then he's like, all right, I guess I'll give you the real money. What is this? What is it?
Right.
I'm sure they'll tease it out later, but it's like, just he's the best. Just give him what he's owed.
But I mean, the currency is useless. I mean,
no, I'm saying he does have useful currency. He just didn't want to pay him, and I'm like, why would you?
well, because the calamari coins weren't worth anywhere close to what the bounty was.
No, I know.
Was.
He's like, this
It
is
was like
half
less
of what
than
you.
half, yeah.
Or, yes, he's the one. Did he give him the? Oh no, Werner gave him that other piece.
Yeah,
of
Werner
stuff.
gave him
Yeah.
the Beskar steel.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, he gave him way less than he was owed, but still better than the currency that he can't use anyway.
Yeah.
And then that's when he learns about getting the new bounty, and I like that just detail of it's a 50-year-old being.
Yep.
And then obviously, hopefully, if you're listening to this, you know what the ending is, but we'll get there in due time. But like, I thought that was a nice setup of like throwing you off because
totally. That threw me off a lot.
For some reason, maybe it's just because I've watched it twice now, but like that imagery of him looking in the bassinet is familiar to me. But I'm like, is that just because I've seen this already, or like, was that in the trailers? Because I purposely did not engage with any of the promotion of
that
this.
was not in
So
the trailers.
I didn't know
that
what
was
he
a
was going
complete
after.
shock.
Yeah.
That ending scene was a complete shock and a little bit of the middle finger to George Lucas, I think, which is hilarious to me.
Maybe.
I am very, very happy that the bounty was not for like Luke or something like that, or more Jedi or something like that, because it's just like, okay, explicitly you're too drawn into that world. So it was really, really lucky. Like, I was really grateful to not be like, oh, this is a cameo. We're going to rely on the original trilogy.
They're doing a good job of being like, this is our world. Like, you're not going to be, I mean, other than obviously chapter 2 has characters we know, or species that we know. And I think even this one has species we know, but it's not like the characters that we knew. It's just from that thing. So he goes to Werner and we meet that doctor. I don't remember his name. Dr. P. Something. And they've clearly got something going on. He's like, yeah, we need this alive though. So, the doctor is really pushing. Can you get it alive? I'm pretty sure Werner's kind of like, or dead.
Right.
And then you see that obviously Werner's got his own thing going as well, because the doctor's like, wait, that's not what we agreed to. He's like, I'm being pragmatic. Like, alive or dead, just bring it, please. So then he goes out, and then that's when he has to meet. It's not Gary Busey. It's Nick Nolte's character. The guy who's always like, I have spoken. That guy.
The little dude in the.
I guess he's a moisture farmer.
Something like that.
I think that's what's written in the actual description, that a moisture farmer helps him.
Probably. I mean, it is a desert island, and that's a trade that we know.
I guess there's more of him. I'm accidentally confusing chapter 2 with chapter 1, but chapter 1 he's just kind of like, nah, like here's the deal, and he helps him to ride. I think that's the only stuff I don't like, him riding that animal or that monster thing. It just, everything up until that looks so cool and stylistic, and then you do that and it gets cartoonish for obvious reasons, because it has to be animated. But even the movement seems cartoonish, and I'm like, this would be fine if other stuff was as fun looking as that, but it's like the only time they do stuff like that, so it feels like a slump. But whatever,
it did. That scene did bother me a little bit. I'm like, I get why you're doing this. It's just, it's fun. It's tongue in cheek. You didn't spend too much time on it, but it did. What? Oh, okay. Because it did bring a little element of action before and like that big action scene with IG-11,
Right.
the droid bounty hunter at the end. So I was just like, okay, you eased us into this. It wasn't really like bam, action out of nowhere kind of thing. So I'm like, okay, cool, we're getting ready for it. I understand it, but it was just like, I don't really care much for it, kind of thing. But still fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's really really fun.
Yeah, and then because that's the other thing, people don't like how short these episodes are. I kind of like it. I'm down.
I'm down. Man.
It feel like it makes me feel fine about watching it multiple times. 'Cause I'm like, yeah, it's not that big of a time investment.
Yeah, but it's
and they do fly by.
Yeah, they do fly by. The complaint about the episodes being short, I get that because you're only used to Star Wars.
As like
most
a 2
people
hour
are,
thing,
most people that are watching Mandalorian, I think, are used to Star Wars from a more of a movie format, as well as the Clone Wars, where each Clone Wars story arc has like 4 or 5 episodes that could be watched like a movie.
Right.
Similarly, I think one of the things that is annoying about this too is that people are complaining that it's short because I think the streaming expectation is the full season's available at once, and
you're waiting.
Yeah, and then we're
you
waiting
can't
a
binge
week.
it, so now
So now there's complaints like, oh, that's too short. I want to know what happens next. I'm like, yeah, okay, so do I. But I mean, like, this is kind of brilliant on Disney Plus's marketing side, considering they don't have a lot of original content. They could really milk this out.
For our purposes, I'm glad it's week by week.
Yeah.
But personally, I would just rather that it was.
I
all
would
at once.
rather it full.
But like,
season.
I mean, this is great news for us that it's week.
Oh,
by
yeah.
week. We can actually have
as
stuff to talk
content
about.
developers,
Yeah.
it makes our jobs a lot easier.
But like, yeah, I would have been perfectly fine if we just waited till like
yeah.
next week to just be like, yeah, we watched the whole season.
Yeah.
It was great, or whatever ends up happening. But anyway,
Because
the point
the
is,
Disney chief, like Alan Horn, he's already said, like, yeah, we could totally do The Mandalorian as a movie. So whether or not they're actually going to make a movie, a specific movie, or whether or not they're going to take all the footage and cut it into a movie length kind of thing.
I think he means like an actual movie.
I think
But,
I think he also means like as an actual movie from a series finale standpoint.
yeah, yeah.
I
would
think that'd be
rather they
cool.
just keep doing the show
On Disney
And,
Plus?
yeah, like
Yeah.
I like, why not have content like that? It's something different. I think that's where they ran into trouble with like everything's a movie,
Yeah.
and then you get something like Solo. Which imagine if that like I'm still thinking it's not a necessary thing, but
Yeah.
if you were like, let's slow down and not
Mm-hmm.
feel like we have to get the best of Solo all in one movie and actually pace it out.
Yep.
That might have worked better for them.
I agree.
If they
I
did
would
the show, and just like how this will probably work better for them,
Yeah.
as you can get people to legitimately invest in these characters, the same way they've invested in the people from the original trilogy.
Yeah.
Because you spend it's what people always talk about. You're inviting these characters into your home. It feels more intimate than a movie.
It does.
It feels
Yeah.
more connected. So
Yeah, it also it sets a different expectation, I think, if you're doing like episodic television based format of broadcasting versus like a movie. Going back to your point about Solo, if they made it like a season on Disney Plus and streaming and everything like that, or even if they continued it, I think there'd be a lot less hate towards Aldrin Einrich as Han Solo, because it'd be like, no, this is completely, you're not even on the same level. I mean, like, that was cinema level, this is TV level. Not that there's much of a difference anymore, but I think people would have swallowed that pill a lot easier and been like, okay, quit with the not my Han Solo kind of hashtags and everything that you did. I'm just like, the guy was painted into an impossible corner, right?
Yeah.
So if they did that, I think it'd be a lot better, because especially because with Han and Chewie, I want to know the fun antics they get up to, and you can't really explore that in a movie format in the same way that you can do it with this long format kind of broadcast.
I guess to get to my point is basically we've described the whole episode already, other than this last segment where he gets to where he needs to pick up the bounty. He meets IG, not 88,
not 88,
IG-11,
because apparently Lucas gets a special royalty check if they use the characters from the original. So
fair enough.
Well, I mean, that was me watching the George Lucas Reacts to video, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, I see you changed it to IG-11 and not 88 because Daddy gets a royalty check if you use 88." I was like, "This is fucking hilarious."
So that's the Taika Waititi character.
Yeah.
I was surprised that they killed him off on the first go.
I was very surprised.
like, oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a droid, so you could just upload that voice to
Yeah.
something else, but I think the idea is he's just gone.
But the thing is, what I liked about that that one particular scene was that there's so much dialogue that expands so much more knowledge in the Star Wars universe. The idea is like, oh, what the hell is a bounty hunter droid? Like that was one of my things in Empire Strikes Back. I'm like, why the hell would a droid be a bounty hunter? This makes no sense to me whatsoever. But within the dialogue, it's kind of like revealed that, hey, I'm serving someone that's controlled me, and I'm like, that makes so much more sense.
He's like, oh, we're gonna get caught. I should blow myself up then, because I can't be caught. So.
Yeah, so I'm just like, this works so well, and it's. I mean, the term retcon gets thrown around a lot. I don't think it's retconning. It's just like, oh, it's just helping explain like this is why these things would exist.
So the thing I was going to get to as well is that this was like the most lively I feel the Mandalorian is in the first chapter. Like, I was like, oh, like I feel like I have an actual sense of his personality on this. Like, he seems bothered at times. He seems like he's trying to like work things out. Like, he doesn't just come off as this stoic, cold person. Like, I mean, yes, there's the part where he sees who the bounty is, but even before that, his interaction with IG-11, all that interaction, I'm like, oh, like he seems like a real entity now. Before, I was kind of just like, yeah, it's cool. He looks cool. He's doing cool things. This is great.
And he's doing exactly what Boba Fett did. It's just like you're not talking or whatever.
But now you get to like, and obviously, as we said, he's talked before this scene. It's just, I like this scene for actually like illustrating kind of what he would be like if he had to like talk through some of this stuff.
It's also fun to see like, oh, you're supposed to be the best, but still seeing him struggle through a lot of this stuff, and he struggles a lot through like chapter 1 and chapter 2 in those fights, especially.
I would say specifically chapter 2, there's more struggle because of what he's going up against, but in this one, it's more like what his interpersonal stuff is like. Like the fact that he's like, look, we'll split this. Like, come on, just let's get on the same page here. I liked that he wasn't just like right away like, I'll just kill this guy right now. Like, he was just like, whatever, you're part of the guild. I respect that. So like, let's just work together and stop like screwing ourselves over here. That was a nice bit of just character building that I like.
It was nice because it's just one of those things where it's like, this is obviously the lone gunman trope, and that doesn't work very, very well. So he's like reluctant to work with others, maybe because of trust issues.
Well, he doesn't like droids. That's clear.
He does not
earlier
like droids.
on when they give him like the speeder to get Horatio Sands off the planet, he's like, no droids. And then when he sees IG-11, he's like, fuck, what the... Sorry, there's obviously no swearing in the show. But like, he's just like, what? A droid? I don't know about this. But he still puts that aside to be like, no, like, we need to like get this done. And I think that's because he's like, you're part of the guild, so I just have to respect that.
Well, he also didn't have any other option too. It was just like, oh, you're going to fight all these guys.
But like, that was before they knew the extent of how many people were there. But that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm putting a fine point on it. That like, it was before they knew how much trouble they were in that he still was like, let's just get on the same page because we work for the same thing.
It's true.
And I respect that. And there's a line in chapter 2 that makes me feel like he obviously has a code. Like, there's something bigger than him that he actually adheres to. This guild being one of it, and then we'll talk about that, the other stuff in chapter 2. But
the biggest question is, I don't know if you caught this, but in chapter 1 at 1831, there's a brief glimpse of another bounty hunter, and it looks very, very similar to Boba Fett. It's got like the colorations and everything like that. It's a very subtle thing, and it's just like, it's depending on your TV settings, you might not even see it, but it's definitely there. And whether the biggest debate for chapter 1, aside from the baby Yoda Ling,
do we know what that species is?
We
called?
do not.
Okay.
And that's why it was like that revelation was a big middle finger to Lucas, I think, because Lucas has always been super, super, super protective about Yoda and being like, no, he's the only one of the species, he's the last of his kind, and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, by episode 1, because there's another one in episode 1.
Yaddle. Yeah,
that's the one.
Yeah, it's Yaddle. That's the
and then
female.
Just goes away.
It just goes away. It was never like heard of ever again. So it was just one of those things that like after he did episode 1, he's like, no, I'm going to be super protective of this. I don't like people learning more about this. So like the inclusion of that baby was just like, hey, we're flipping you off, Lucas. You don't have any control over this content anymore.
Fair enough.
But at
I mean,
the same
they
time,
put his name in the thing, which
Yeah.
like it's like based on Star Wars by George Lucas.
Yes.
There's no equivocation on it, which
Yeah.
is nice. But you're right. So basically that's what they realize is that they are the bounty is and I like that IG-11 when he's like, what? Said it was a 50-year-old thing, and he's like, I don't know, species age differently.
Well,
and
yeah,
I was
I
like,
mean-
and I was like, yeah, I guess when we meet Yoda, he's like thousands of years old.
Yeah,
Or
he's
it's just
like close to a century a year. He's
thought he was
700 or 800 or something like that.
I
Because
thought
when
he
he
was
dies
1,000
is
years
about like when he dies is like he says dialogue is like when 900 years old.
Okay.
You look this good, you will not, kind of thing.
Okay, I thought he was. I shouldn't have said thousands, but I thought he was 1,000. Okay, fair
Yeah.
enough. He's centuries years old.
Yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, from a trajectory standpoint, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, 50. I
But
guess you
on
would
that,
be
like,
infant, but
there wouldn't be a lot of them then if you're still like a baby at 50 years
well,
old.
that's I think that's the point that is trying to be. It's like the panda of the world. It's just like, I'm sorry, you guys, your survival instincts suck, and you take so long to mature into a fully grown thing. No wonder you guys are dying at a big population, right? And
again,
especially
we're not in
now-
chapter 2 yet, but I
Right.
feel like they might be able to protect themselves. But
Yes,
but I'm
but-
just saying, like, we see that at 50, so who knows,
Right.
like, what happens from like 1 to 10.
Right, but it's also like from what Werner Herzog's character is doing, the guy that's clearly an ex-Imperial officer, still believes in it and all that kind of stuff, and has his own stormtrooper guild that like kind of basically like the neo-Nazi kind of thing, if we're following that dialogue of the Imperials are like Nazis, oppression and all that kind of stuff, and then we have neo-Nazis coming up as the rise of like Kylo Ren. If we're following that kind of narrative that Star Wars has always laid out, that it's just one of those things that, okay, he's doing this thing, he's separated because his whole empire fell, but he's basically, it's kind of like, and this is so really fun to me to see, but like he's basically like the Southern states. Like old Confederate generals from the Southern states from the Civil War and everything like that. So that was really interesting for me to see reflected in the Star Wars universe, and how some people are still like, oh yeah, no, we're still going to wear our stormtrooper stuff and stay loyal to the Empire.
Yeah. The
Sorry, the point I was trying to make there was that from that dialogue alone, with that doctor especially, is like alive or dead or something like that, it seems to me that that species was under particular interest of the Imperials to be doing research for and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it was a thing that maybe it wasn't just the Imperials, maybe it was the Sith that wanted to study them too and end up killing them or doing whatever. But I think there's going to be more to that character in many significant ways, for sure.
So, yeah, that's kind of where we end, where obviously whoever commissioned IG-11 was like, yeah, you can just kill it. I don't actually need it. And so that forces the Mandalorian to kill IG-11 so that he can save the bounty. I feel like...
Do you think it was more...
That's another character moment of just the way he looks at it. I'm not saying like I'm smart. I'm saying I'm just piecing together now that obviously they were showing you all that stuff at the beginning to show that he's like, I can't leave another kid abandoned.
Yes.
And so I was like, wait, is this just for the job? And I'm like, no, it's clearly he wants to protect a kid so
That's
that
how
it
I
doesn't
feel
go
about
through
it too.
what he went through.
Like, I think what will happen is most likely he will bring it back to Werner Herzog's character. It's because he hasn't been named. That's why I have to say his real actor.
Yeah, he's just listed as the client.
Yeah, he's just the client. I think what will happen is that the Mandalorian will bring it, the Yodeling, that's the best thing to call it, the Yodeling back to Werner and try to get a better understanding of what the doctor's going to do. It's just like, if you're going to research it, cool, but if you're going to kill it, I got to kill you kind of thing. I think it's going to ultimately come down to that. Then he's going to have a little buddy.
Yeah.
It's going to be a father-son story. Yay.
Well, yeah, that's what people are comparing, like what the Wolf and the Cub or whatever.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't remember. It's everyone knows that famous Japanese film or story. That's how it ends, right? Just him looking at it after he's killed IG-11.
Shot IG-11.
Another big thing, I love the music. It's the same guy who did the Black Panther score.
Oh, yeah.
I
Seriously?
mean, he also did Venom, but
That's
he did the
sick.
Black Panther score. More important, he's Childish Gambino's producer, Ludwig Göransson.
Awesome.
He did first Creed movie. I don't know if he
Oh,
did second.
sick.
You can kind of hear Creed stuff
Yeah.
in this Mandalorian one. He's going to do the next Christopher Nolan movie.
Very cool.
Tenet. So I like his sound.
I love his sound, man. I didn't even think about that to look that up. But
Yeah,
that's awesome.
you can listen to the score already, but it's weird. They're doing like 9 pieces of music per chapter.
Yeah.
So like when you look it up, it's like here's the score for chapter 1, here's the score for chapter 2,
Very
which cool. But I obviously just making a playlist because
Right.
I'm not gonna actually be like, oh, let me go to all the different chapters. Yeah, Ludwig Göransson, great score.
Yep.
Love it. Nice to see that Disney's still taking care of him. That is good. I'm sure this is of interest to people. I think people already know this, but Dave Filoni did this pilot.
Yeah, he produced it.
Well, he directed it. So,
yeah. He directed and produced it.
So
yeah.
he's the guy that did like Star Wars Rebels, Clone
and Clone Wars, and like honestly,
and everyone
Filoni
has always been like, please just
yeah.
give him the like
I
a
honestly,
movie. And so obviously this is the stepping stone. You
Yeah.
do this because
I really want him to get the movie. Like honestly, after the Game of Thrones guys and got fired essentially. Like, oh yeah, it's amicable. No, I'm sorry that they got fired.
We
They-
talked about that.
They got
Yeah.
fired. Yeah, we talked about it off mic.
Yeah,
but they
yeah.
got, like,
No.
yeah.
Yes, we didn't talk about it on the show. We've
Yeah.
talked about that. I don't think.
No,
I think
they got
Netflix
fired.
is like, fine, we'll take them, but
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's like, we're really dying to work with these guys.
No, really, they haven't because, like, honestly, well, aside from how you feel about season 8, I don't really care about it as much as most other people do, and I get why a lot of people are very, very upset. I realize that they have a right to be, but the biggest issue is like the way they're conducting kind of like interviews right now, especially.
Well, yeah, they did that like live stream where they're
Yeah.
basically like, yeah, we're not good.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we were doing.
They really, really admitted that, yeah, we just got lucky. We
Yeah.
like with the source material, there was so much to adopt, and then when they did their own thing, it was very clear they did not know what
yeah,
they were doing.
we don't know what. Like they flat out said we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
So like anyone who's like, no, like it was like, they're like,
Yeah.
man, it didn't know.
I mean,
we just had to get it done.
Yeah, season 8 reeked
Because
of
everyone
that,
was like,
for
oh,
sure.
why didn't HBO give them more time? HBO flat out said, you can have as much time as you need to
Yeah,
finish
they
it. And
took
like,
a
now, can we
full
just be done?
year.
No, like, let's just be done.
Yeah.
6 episodes, we'll be done.
They took a full year off to do the final season. I'm like, they had enough time, and
Anyway.
they could have taken it's
Anyways,
just
so
whatever.
now that they're gone, you want Dave Filoni to do it.
Yes, I desperately want him to do like whatever the original pitch was that the Game
I
of
mean,
Thrones
the
guys were
good
gonna
thing
do.
is when you do the first episode of a TV show, you're the one who sets the tone. So,
Yes.
like, it means more who the first director is.
Yeah. But Filioni he knows the source material so well.
Yes,
he
but
expands it in
animation
such a
is different.
Really, yes,
Animation's different from live action.
It's very different. But I mean,
so I'm not saying
this is why
it's
I think you
easier.
should
I'm
jump
saying
to
it is a different skill
Yeah.
set in terms of directing. So it's good to see what happens when he
Yeah.
is directing live action.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that goes. I don't know how many he'll direct.
I
but
honestly feel like if
directing that first episode is
Filioni
good.
had some sort of position at Star Wars where he was kind of like the Kevin Feige, Feige of the Star Wars, I would be so happy with that because Filioni he connects everything so well. If you watch the Clone Wars and you watch Rebels, Rebels is a kid show, but the writing in it just astronomically amazing, and he connects things and brings things out. It's awesome. But,
So John Favreau wrote this episode.
Yes, he did.
I keep trying to look to see if he's writing all of them. Let's see.
I think he's got a writing credit for each episode though.
Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
he's that's kind of what I was looking at.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's chapter 1. Do
Yep.
we want to go to chapter 2 now?
Yeah, we definitely want to jump into chapter 2.
So chapter 2, The Child. This directed by Rick Famuyiwa, which I'm very excited about
Yeah.
because he did Dope. He did a movie I really like called The Wood. He was supposed to do The Flash.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
legitimately excited about The Flash.
Well, I like to think that he did do the Flash in an alternate timeline.
All right. Not the one we're in. So
Nope, not reality.
Okay, yeah. Wait, yeah. John Favreau wrote this second one as
Yeah.
well. So that's because I was like, wait, so he just produced it, but no, I think he came to them with a finished
Yes.
product,
Yes.
as in like, here's my Mandalorian show,
Right.
And then he just picked amazing directors to execute his vision. This episode, I guess my big thing because I've watched it less than the first. Sorry, chapter 2 I've watched less. I've only seen it the one time.
Right.
the big thing is Jawa steal his parts from his spaceship,
Correct.
and he needs to retrieve them.
Yep.
That's the episode. Still like it. It's just it's more of the like animated like.
It's
monster
definitely
stuff.
more
So
like,
it's
okay, this is the stuff that you get away with in the TV world as an episode versus a movie kind of thing. Because like as a movie, people are like, why are you spending so much time on this kind of thing? And in the
Yeah, and you
TV
have time
format,
to
you're
do
just
it.
like, this is fun.
Yeah, you have time to do it. I really like the Jawas when they're like, you speak like shit. You speak like a Wookiee, and I'm just like, good, make fun of
That
him,
was a
please.
lot of fun
I
for me.
really like this.
Yeah. I really like the idea. To see his gun in action was crazy. I love that thing because it was just like it's such a unique design for a gun in general. You're
Yes.
like you're thinking like, oh my god, that's gonna do something cool, and it did not disappoint whatsoever. The way it just like disintegrates people is awesome, and it's just like it's different from any other blaster, which I really really appreciate too, because it's just like it can't be just a long range blaster. It just like has to do something different, and it did not disappoint. It was just so cool.
I did like it. I think. So the line that I was talking about in this one is when he was like, "Well, you have to get rid of your." Well, the one thing that Moisture Farmer says to the Jawas is like, "No, you can't make him take off his like gear."
Yeah.
But like he's a Mandalorian, you can't ask him to do that. But you can like he's like you're gonna have to give up your weapons. So he's like, yeah, but that's part of my religion. Like another just like interesting thing. Like yes, we know the lore, but like for him to vocalize it obviously means something. Like
that dialogue
about
was awesome.
him and like what he cares about.
Yeah,
and
because
then he's like, well, then you're not getting your spaceship back. Then
Yeah, because
and he's like, okay.
I think one of the best, like a while ago, I forget which episode, like which podcast episode we talked about this, but one of the things I was most excited for in The Mandalorian was exploring Mandalorian lore and culture, and they're doing exactly that with like amazing pieces of dialogue that they're just throwing in there. The idea that and going back to chapter 1 and what's happening throughout this entire series too, I love the RPG element of it, where he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this person this to this person, they're gonna upgrade my armor, and this is like
We did miss that part where he has a conversation with another Mandalorian, and they're like, yeah, this will be great for all the foundlings. He's like, I used to be a foundling, and she's like, yeah, I know, like let's keep this going, this will really help out. So again, that ties into his motivations of like not wanting essentially orphans to just have to like fend for themselves. He wants to help out kids. So the big thing in this chapter is obviously the Force is used, and I feel like when you were talking about earlier, like can Star Wars work without? That was my big thing. Is I feel like the big thing around Rogue One was like it'll be good because there's no Jedi and there's no Force, and I was kind of like, but like I wouldn't really want to watch a Star Wars thing without those elements, because that's what makes Star Wars.
It is quintessential.
It doesn't.
To the Star
you
Wars
don't
universe.
need Luke. Like it doesn't have to be like Luke, like just around the Skywalkers per se, but like. I feel like you take too much away if you're like, no, it's just a bunch of people who happen to live in that universe, because it's like what like whenever you're digging into a story, you need to like think about like what you're doing to make it unique, and what you're doing. Like if you're going to be like this is a Star Wars story, why would you take out that unique factor that makes it different from any other one? And so I'm glad they're introducing it, but I kind of wanted to know like what you thought of like
my
the
impression
use of the Force.
I fundamentally agree with you with the element of you have to introduce the Force into a Star Wars.
It's not that you have to. I'm just like, if you're not doing
but you
the
have to.
Skywalkers, which I like, that they're not doing that. If you're not gonna do specifically Jedi Sith, which obviously brings the Force, you would. I feel like then you're leaving yourself with just the Force,
right? And which is fantastic because the Force is at play for everything, right? If we're really looking at the religious understanding of the Force, it's involved in everything. So you can't have a universe where you actually drift away from it entirely. But it's just like the thing I like about it a lot is that we're not diving deeper into the Sith and Jedi kind of quarrel, because that wouldn't make sense, right?
Using being like this yodeling that will just until we find out what they're called.
And it makes sense too, because it's just like, so from the fall of the Jedi Order in episode 3, to now the Mandalorian, that's about the span of like 30 years or something like that, right? Let's just assume it's 30 years.
This is after Return of the.
This
so
is
this is after
Return
episode
of the-
6.
Yeah, this is after episode 6, before episode 7, obviously.
Right.
So they're dealing with a time frame where the Empire has fallen. There hasn't been a republic established yet to take over, to rule everything, and all that kind of stuff. And where the galaxy's in disarray, and obviously they just explore that through dialogue, which is why this works so well. It's literally the Wild West right now in that Star Wars universe. What I like about it is that with the Jedi being forgotten, the Sith not being celebrated in the Empire, it was just like, oh, we have Emperor Palpatine, who the general public believes the fake news that, oh, he was literally attacked by Jedi, and now he looks like that. He has no Jedi powers and all that kind of stuff. So, like, they believe that fake news. So they're literally, this galaxy is like, no, we legit think the Jedi are gone, and we think the Jedi were the only ones that are Force users. So I think the thing that was really, really cool here was the fact that characters are exploring the Force without knowing what it is, and I think that's really, really cool because he's genuinely confused. He's like, "What the hell happened?" Like,
because obviously when he's working on his cut earlier in the episode, I feel like the yodeling is trying to use the Force on it, and he stops it.
Yes,
and then obviously when he's being attacked, the yodeling uses it because that's where he does that cool thing. I feel like that's got to be cultural, where he kind of just gets on his knees and he just points the knife out as the thing's charging. I don't know the name of the monster, sorry, but like he's being charged at.
But we've seen that.
This so because he needs to get the egg, right? That's the whole thing. Is like they basically come to an understanding of he's not going to give up his weapons because he's like, well, you stole from me, so I'm not like going to trade with you. That's bullshit.
Well, that's
I'm
the
not going
thing.
to lose more to get back what you just stole from me. Like, but they're like, well, then get us the egg. And so he needs to go get this egg thing, and then he really gets. That's the most struggling I've seen him have is like fighting that monster. Obviously, to the point where the yodeling needs to use the Force to save the day. But like. Again, just it was a cool visual of him just like pointing the knife out at it and being like, "Well, whatever happens, happens. Here we go."
I really love that because that is exploring Mandalorian culture a lot more from a non-visual standpoint, from a non-dialogue standpoint. It's the idea that Mandalorians it is a warrior-based culture, so they celebrate fighting more than anything else. They're actually defined by that. So. With him being true to his culture, even though he was orphaned at a young age, whether or not like he was still taught these things or part of that sect or whatever he is with the other Mandalorian that made his armor, the idea of the most honorable death is one that you still die fighting. So he's just like, no, I'm probably going to die now. And the idea is like, nope, I'm still going to go down with my gun pointed the right way or my knife pointed the right way. You're not going to get me without a fight kind of deal. But he realized like, there's no way I'm going to win here. And then the Force, and then he's just like, what the hell was that? I don't understand. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that.
I just want to know because I feel like there was a lot of, I don't know about it if that was put onto this this show, but I know Rogue One, that was a big deal that people were kind of like, oh, they still talked about the Force, which I don't know why you wouldn't. But like, the people were like, no, it's going to be the first one without any of that. And I was like, I mean, obviously Darth Vader uses the Force in that movie. But like, but that's Darth Vader. So that kind of it becomes a moot point. But like this one, I was like, oh, like they introduced a creature that's from Yoda's species, which means there is the possibility. I always thought there's the possibility for that. That's the visual cue for everyone else. Like, oh, this will introduce the Force elements. And then they really pay it off in Chapter 2.
Because what we do know is like, well, for those that dive into the Star Wars literature like a religion, like I do, you know that every iteration of Yoda's species in the expanded universe has been Force sensitive. So it's safe to assume that species in general is closely affiliated with the Force, and that's why they're maybe being hunted down or researched throughout the galaxy with the Imperial officers and all that kind of stuff. Because I think there's actually something that ties very, very closely in with Palpatine's ultimate thing.
You think this is going to tie into Rise of Skywalker?
I think I think it fits in very, very well. I don't think it's directly going to get there, not within this season, but I think it's going to tie in with the new series really, really well. I feel like it's going to be a point of explanation about how Palpatine is back.
All right.
I really think so. Because I think
Good news is we'll find out together.
I think that what they're going to try to do is extract midichlorians, even though they haven't mentioned midichlorians in such a long time. And then those midichlorians are going to be somehow manipulated to being Emperor Palpatine. But also at the same time, I think, because we talked about this a lot, the idea of reincarnation and my theory about who Rey is, I actually feel like in order to do one thing to reincarnate Anakin, then someone else had to come back from the dark side too. There has to be balance in the Force. So I think the act of reincarnating Rey made Palpatine come back as well in some weird way. We don't know. That's just wild speculation on my part.
Right.
But I feel like it's got to do something there. Because it's an issue that this character, this Yoda-ling character, is not referenced in the new trilogy. So it's just like whether or not this character survives is a different story, right? But it's one of those things. He might just
be too young to mention him though. Like even like we meet Yoda when he's like 900.
Yeah, like
so maybe like
700 or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe he would have to be like 500 before he like makes like any type of like
make
presence.
Dialogue good.
No, I mean like just more like that he would be taken seriously.
Sure.
Like, which makes sense in terms of timing. Like if he's only 50 when this starts,
right.
This is still maybe like
no. But my point is like Kylo
30
Ren,
years from
right.
Episode 7.
But Kylo Ren makes such a point of hunting down Jedi relics and everything like that to try to piece together the past and try to do that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure he would have been able to hunt down Force sensitive people, especially this Yoda-ling, if that was the case, right? Because ultimately, the reason why the Imperial officers have such a hard time searching for it is because they can tap into the Force to try to detect people, right?
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't think there's enough time for that
probably not.
Or being to make a presence or name for itself.
No, probably not.
I think
it's
still a baby at
vehicle.
50 years old. Like it probably isn't doing much.
No.
So yeah, that I don't. Yeah, as I tried to call through earlier, I don't really remember the details of it. I just know the broad strokes of Chapter 2, which is, and I will admit, I kind of phased out a bit while he was like dealing with the egg stuff. That kind of I was just like, all right, well,
yeah.
I'm sure this will all get sorted out.
It
later.
was just really funny.
And then they
to me.
just crack it open.
They just
and
crack it open and start eating the yolk. I'm like,
yuck.
okay, so you guys
gross.
just wanted a fancy meal.
That's nice for them.
Interesting.
He got his stuff back. That's nice.
Yep. And they put the ship back together in record time.
And he told the moisture farmer, "Hey, I'll give you half of the earnings." And the guy's like, "No, you're just my guest, so I needed to help you."
No, well, he was the farmer guy was always like, no, I wanted peace back to this, and you brought back that. So, and I really like what he says, like, I can't pay you much, but you would be a great part of this crew. And he's like, listen, I've made a lot of decisions to be free from a life of certitude. Not going to enter one now. He's like, I respect that. And I really like that dialogue. He's like, well, then all I can offer is your thanks and everything like that. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I hope I see that character again.
I was going to say, I feel like he'll be back.
I hope so. Yeah.
He's going to have to like go back to him for something.
Probably. We'll see.
But that's pretty much that episode is just that for me is the retrieving the egg.
Yeah.
Showing him actually like struggle with something because I don't think I ever really saw him struggle
in the
before.
Well, he did struggle with trying to tame.
But that was for comedic effect.
Yeah,
that was.
But
you
also,
never were like,
he did struggle with the first beast that tried to like kill him. Where the Nick Nolte character saved him and everything. So he did struggle a little bit. The struggle wasn't as big as in this chapter, which is great. It's fine. I like that.
Yeah, I thought that was good, even though I kind of tuned out. But I was like, oh no, that's nice.
Yeah, I'm excited for the third chapter where he's going to do the RPG element upgrade again. And then,
now that he's got these pieces, you think he can go back now and be like, all right,
absolutely,
upgrade, please.
Yeah. And like this is the one thing too is like I cannot wait for someone to potentially explore this as a video game because like the way it's being written together and done and executed all the scenes it really does make you feel like this is how an RPG game would be done in like a television format. Like that's one of the biggest things when you take like RPG stories from video games and try to extrapolate that, you lose the RPG element. And I think this one does it really, really well without even trying. So I think it lends itself to be a really, really good RPG game with a lot of customization and all that kind of stuff going forward. So please, someone pick that idea up, but not Electronic Arts, because you suck.
I will say this: I do not care for RPG games, so I'm just gonna nod my head and be like, "Yep,
Yeah,
right.
no, this is definitely a me thing.
You're not alone. I just do not like. It's not that I think they're bad. I just don't care. I'm
That's
just
fine.
like, okay, good, and everybody enjoy what they enjoy,
Yep.
including RPG games. I just do not.
Yeah, no, I'm an RPG nerd. You give me a character with customization, character differences, stats, and all that kind of shit. I am down. Man.
I just want to be able
That
to
is
play. But
awesome.
I feel like that makes you feel more invested and like you're really going through it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's I get the appeal. It's just not for me.
Yep. No, I get that. That's more understandable. But yeah.
But that's The Mandalorian, the first 2 chapters.
Yep. Fantastic.
We
show.
actually went longer than I thought we would have. Being honest.
Oh yeah,
I
knew
thought
we
this would be
go
like
a 30-minute banger.
Yeah.
Nope, I knew we were going to cover close to an hour for sure.
But yeah,
I've got so much to say about it.
Do you have anything else to say?
There's. I
feel like now we can do more general.
I think we can do more wild general speculation. My biggest question is, to those of you that think this is Yoda's son, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. It's not possible, because I'm like, you're talking about Jedi and Sith both fear love to the degree where even the Sith are like, yeah, stay away from that shit. Like, that's not in the Sith code. They're like, stay away from that shit. It's too wild and unpredictable. So for Yoda to have failed as the leader of the Jedi Council and to take that role so seriously, and then to go to Dagobah and be like, no, I'm going to find Yaddle again and we're going to make some babies. It's just completely not there. I think whoever this Yoda-ling is going to be deeply, deeply tied in with a lot of mystical force stuff that's going to happen. I think it's been really, really cool.
All right.
Yeah.
I have nothing.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how the Carl Weathers character.
I like seeing Carl Weathers in this. The other question
kind of
is,
plays out, because especially the second time I was watching, I was just like, why is he like this? Like, it doesn't make sense to me that the Mandalorian would keep working with this guy that like gives him such a hard time after he clearly like, what was that? Like, that was like almost 5 bounties he brought in.
Yep.
And this guy's still like, I don't know if I can pay you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah. It's the world we live in. I guess he's getting paid in exposure.
Yeah.
We
all love that.
Hey, I will pay you in exposure. God damn it.
Yeah.
Shut up. Oh, here's a video of me paying my paying my mortgage off with exposure dollars.
Yeah.
Fuck you people that do that. It's bullshit.
So yeah, there is The Mandalorian. It's 2 chapters in.
So the ultimate question is, and this is an idea that I thought was really, really cool, whether or not this Mandalorian character, Pedro Pascal, is related to Boba Fett, whether or not his brother or something like that. That'd be interesting.
That is one thing I was like, well, they've already committed to showing like basically a Pacific Islander as young Pedro Pascal.
Yep.
And obviously, as people can hear from his name, he is not a Pacific Islander.
Yes.
He is, I believe, the actor. I can't speak to what they're going to do with the character, but the actor is Chilean American.
Yes.
So that'll be interesting. That might speak to him not taking off his mask.
It could be, but we'll see what happens there.
We'll see, because yes, they have committed to being like he is the same in a metaphor.
Yeah.
Let's not. Yeah, obviously, there's once
in
it's
very,
Star Wars,
very
it's
broad
irrelevant.
strokes, yeah.
It's irrelevant. But if we're talking about acting and like the actual real world, they've committed to him being the same ethnicity as the person who played Jango Fett.
But interestingly,
meaning that Boba Fett would be the same.
But interestingly, not the same accent. So that's an interesting choice, because
this is what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, Pedro is basically just using his accent.
Yes, it's just regular and everything like that. Galactic Basic. What I mean by that?
No, I know
is
what you mean. I know he's using the like general tongue that they
exactly
use.
Galactic Basic. But in episode 2, as well as the redid
but they have like the Maori accent. Like they sound more like Taika Waititi.
Yeah, it's a New Zealand accent.
Yeah, it is. But I'm saying specific to that ethnic, because there's white people from New Zealand, and then there's like
Correctly.
Maori, like that.
Maori
That's what I meant by
tribes,
like, yeah. So that is
It's
what I mean.
definitely
It's
more
that,
of an indigenous
It's more that
kind of
accent than
perspective,
it
yeah.
is a
Absolutely.
white person from
And
New Zealand.
the reason why this is important is because Lucas went back in like one of the small edits in the special editions too to comply with everything in the Blu-ray release was that Boba Fett's voice got changed to be more
Oh,
New
they
Zealand
did. I still haven't rewatched. I'm going to.
It's very subtle.
Obviously,
It's
but
very,
they
very
did change
subtle.
it. Okay.
They changed it in the Blu-ray release.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna look on Disney Plus because I've heard they've changed other things.
They have changed other things in Disney Plus, and I am going to go through that with a fine comb and be like, what the hell? Because obviously I got to do my whole giant Star Wars marathon before Episode 9 comes out.
I was hoping they would have Last Jedi on there, but what are you gonna do?
Yep.
It's actually the one I don't already have on Blu-ray.
Yep.
All right. Well,
All right,
they
guys.
screwed me.
Or folk, people,
Yeah,
y'all.
we'll rate the season as a whole. We don't have to do.
Yeah, we're not doing
episode
episode by episode. That's just,
It's just you. Hopefully, from what we've said, you can get a sense of whether or not we liked it.
yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for listening.
And we will. Well, sorry.
Continue.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah. We'll be back next week. If you want to listen to more great podcasts, by the way, please go to thatshelf.com. There's podcasts like Composers. They just did their Game of Thrones episode. I'm sure they'll have another one by the time this episode came out.
Spicy.
So they pick a composer and they kind of go through their work on a specific film. Obviously, that was Ramin Djawadi for Game of Thrones. They just did Hans Zimmer for Dunkirk.
Nice.
So there's that. There's Highly Logical, obviously. No Budget Nightmares is a great theme song. There's Black Hole Films. I feel like I'm going to be on that soon, but who knows? I did Spirited Away, but I never know when those things come out. They surprise me as well.
Yep.
But just listen to the podcast on thatshelf.com. They're great. If you want to listen to the back catalog of Spoiled Rotten in particular, please go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. You will find our social media there. You will find ways to rate, subscribe, and review. And please do that. It's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Radio Public, Stitcher. Most places that you find your podcasts, we're there. So please review and rate and subscribe. I think that's it.
Yep.
Goodbye, everybody.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.